Okay, do we have all our speakers that have signed up?
Yep.
Phil, everybody's on? Okay, great. Okay, and then I guess, do you have a book club that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I can cover the book discussion, which comes up on November 12th.
Okay.
That's our final 2020 event until January. And that's when we go behind the scenes and find out about where your recycling goes in an open discussion of the book, Junkyard Planet. The book discussion takes place Thursday, November 12th at 6:30 p.m. And for more information, go to the Marea website at www.themarea.org. And there'll be information for signing up to register for that. So we hope to see you there. You don't need to have read the book, but it's a really good book. So if you get the chance to read some of it or all of it, or maybe you're inspired by the book discussion to read it after that, that would be great. So we look forward to seeing you.
Okay, I guess it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to our last meeting of the year. This is the Mid-Atlantic Renewable Energy Association. We're a volunteer nonprofit group supporting sustainable living, renewable energy, and basically working on as individuals to help make our civilization and the planet a little better for humans. This is our 15th year we've been doing this, and the last Thursday of every month we have a meeting that's free and open to the public. Tonight's meeting is a little bit different. This is our last one of the year, and what we're offering is several members of our group and interested folks that are interested are offering short talks on what they've been doing this year and a little longer term to help reduce their carbon footprint. Again, we are a volunteer group, and so if you would like to support us, we have a small cost memberships that are available through our website. You can get the information there. To start our program tonight, we have our president, Vera, who's going to be giving a talk on how she decided to quit mowing and some of the surprising results that have come from that. So, you want to go ahead, Vera?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. All right. This is 5 years ago, I would have never dreamed this is something I would be talking about, but here we are. To give a little background, we live in Bucks County, and for my husband and I both worked full-time, and for 15 years, like so many people, we just had a lawn service come in and they mowed and trimmed and mulched. You know, it was kind of mindless, and we did that over the years. But meanwhile, my sensibilities were improving, and I was starting to think about things and learn about things. And I realized I started to dread those days, that it just felt like an assault on the property. It was noisy, it was wasteful, it was polluting everything, it was hurting the animals and the plants, and I just found myself thinking, for what? Why are we doing this? And then one spring, the guy, his truck's idling in the driveway, and he knocks on the front door and he wants to know what week we should start the lawn service. And without thinking about it, I just said, we're not doing that this year. We're doing something different. Just without a plan. I had no plan at all. And so then I guess we went through, there was lots and lots of false starts and trying to figure out what to do after that. But I mean, I remember at the beginning thinking, great, we'll just let acres of lawn become meadow. It'll be lovely. And so how innocent was that to think that's how it was going to work out? So that's how it began. It was a slippery slope of learning, because like I said, I was always aware of the waste from the fuels, the burning of the fuels and the emissions, and all of that was clearly so wasteful to me. This is a quote from Talamy's recent book. But over time, was 5 years ago, over time I've learned so much more and have a growing appreciation for how much more there is to the whole cycle of how we manage our energy use and its waste products. So over time on our property, I've got a growing appreciation. If anybody's, I hope you'll appreciate that, for photosynthesis and for, of course, for the role of plants and trees in carbon sequestration, the importance of pollinators. And I had never really thought about the importance of healthy soil and its ability to sequester carbon. And then, of course, biodiversity and the impact of introduced plants and wildlife. So what started out as a simple thing of trying to reduce emissions and save energy has really taken on much more breadth and depth over the years. And as I noted at the bottom here, meanwhile, while I'm doing all this learning, the fantasy meadow is being taken over by invasives. Actually, it was an invasive meadow. It was really Maria and Maria activities that got me, I would say, dirt woke over these years. I'm not going to go through them all here, but I thought it might be helpful for the other people if they wanted to go back and look at some of these books or presentations because they were really important eye openers and mind openers for me that helped me grow and change. So what are we doing now? So 5 years later, I would say our strategy is basically let nature be nature. After too many false starts and too many failed attempts at other things to try to explain here, I would just say that now we've identified, we're happy with our plan of simply identifying and removing introduced plants and letting Mother Nature take over. The one thing we haven't mowed at all since that one day we said no more mowing, but what I do now is use an electric push mower to make paths through what used to be lawn, and that works out great because it looks nice. It gives it looks like somebody lives here, but it also makes a safe place in terms of Lyme disease, an easy place to walk and to manage without worrying about wading through the tall grasses, for the kids, the grandkids especially that are here. It's also, what we're doing is far less expensive than a lawn service, even when we hire people to help us at times. It's saved, in addition to being much better for the environment, it saved money. I remember we live in an area where we don't have a homeowners association or any rules about lawn cutting or anything. But we took some ribbing early on that we couldn't afford to cut the grass anymore and things like that. But it was actually less expensive. It was so frustrating and so hard at the beginning. But now I'm really surprised at the progress. There's walls of brambles and thickets that were everywhere along the driveway, at the edge of the woods, everywhere where there was disturbed soil, and especially areas where it was just wide open, is now they're gone. And more we're discovering new natives. Maybe they were there all along. I didn't know them when I saw them, but also maybe I think that we've created new opportunities by getting rid of some of this. I know we have, by getting rid of some of this stuff. And every year we're finding that there's larger and larger parts of our property that we can maintain in the spring, and then we can extend that. We take on the next big chunk to try to get rid of the invasives there, the first wave of invasives. So I wanted to talk about, was actually 3 ideas to share that over the years we've figured out that have been helpful to us. I thought may be helpful to you. Now this one, anybody who knows me knows that I usually buy secondhand clothes. But I have to tell you, I've had it with Lyme disease. I've had Lyme disease 4 times, and the last time was just really a drag a couple years ago. And if there was anything I disagreed with Doug Tallamy about, I thought in his book he gave Lyme disease kind of a lighthearted treatment, and for me, it's become a really serious issue. So after doing some research, I ended up buying clothes that are pre-treated with permethrin. We've always used no herbicides or pesticides or anything here, so this was a hard decision for me to make. But I do feel like, based on all that I've read, that it was the responsible thing to do, and I think it has kept me safe, because now I have this outfit I put on. That's the pants and the shirt and the gloves, and I also socks and boots, and it all tucked in before I go out into the yard. And I don't remember pulling a single tick off me this year, and I certainly didn't have Lyme disease. And I wanted to say what I especially like are these arm gaiters right here. Because then I used to buy long gloves that had the gloves and came all the way up, and the fingertips would wear. I was always wearing out the gloves, and I had to replace the whole thing, and they didn't fit that well. Well, now I've had the same gaiters all summer. I think I've gone through 4 sets of work gloves, but I can just replace the gloves, and the gloves fit better. So and there's a little Velcro strap here, so I can pull it tight around my glove. And this little workup, I keep it right by the front door, and every time I head out of the house, I grab those. So that's one thing. The next idea is, early on, I mean, the first thing I had to learn was I got a crash course in autumn olive and multifloral rose, that's for sure. But then I would go outside with this, with all this good intentions and wanting to get rid of understand what's out here and get rid of the stuff that was introduced and to try to restore the natural ecology. And I was immediately stumped. Everything I would look at, what is that? What is that? What is that? And I couldn't know until somebody introduced me to iNaturalist. And I'm also a very reluctant app user, but this app really changed my life. So it's an app that you can take a picture of a plant or a critter or a cocoon or a worm or anything in the yard, and it will instantly auto-identify it. It does an incredible job of matching the picture. And then once so iNaturalist, I should have said this before, it's like a social network is how they describe themselves. So once you do this auto-identification, then there's real people out there who see your identification and they chime in and they can confirm it or change it. They're also available to answer questions. The app keeps an ongoing list of your observations. Like I said, the computer and the phone app version work together. So once you have one account, you can look at it out in the yard on your phone, or you can look at it inside on your computer. And then when you're looking at it on a computer, it identifies plants that are introduced. Aha, so now I have this, with a few clicks, I can go from standing in the yard saying, what is this, to knowing what it is and whether or not it was introduced. So this was like just a big step in helping me, I think, make really significant improvement on our property. And it's free. But here's just a quick sequence of what it looks like. So this is 3 screenshots from my phone. So I took a picture of this. What is this? And say next. And then this is the next screen that you get. And there's an option here to say, what do you see? View suggestions. And so if you click on that, then it gives you a screen that looks like this. And it says, we're pretty sure this is in the genus Aliaria. And here are top 10 suggestions. And there'll be a list of there. And this is garlic mustard. And so right then I've gone from what is this to it's garlic mustard just with 2 clicks out in the yard. I love it. Then when I come inside, I can, on the computer version of the app, I can dig in a little more and look it up, and then there's the dreaded pink exclamation point. And when I see that, that always means that it's introduced. And so that's how I know it's introduced, and it's not something that's probably a contributing player to my local ecosystem. It's something that I'm probably going to get rid of. So this app and being able to go from what is this to knowing what it is and whether or not it's introduced is really key to my learning and my personal growth about what's going on and knowing what actions to take. So then, and I'll just leave this in here. I just pulled out some, there's about 150 observations on my list now, and these are some of the natives that it's helped me identify, and these are some of the introduced plants that's helped me identify and know what to remove. So once I know that's what needs to be removed, a lot of it, of course, can be hand pulled, like garlic mustard's example, that's something that can be easily hand pulled. But when I first started trying to do this, I was so frustrated because I couldn't get stuff out of the ground. And I would try to pull, and I would break off. I would try digging. I would try, shoveling. I couldn't get, and it was so much work, and to make so little progress, I just thought I'm never going to get anywhere. I kept trying different tools and different things, and then I found this guy online, the polar bear. And so it's this big tool that I use to pull up autumn olive, multifloral rose, Japanese barberry, all kind of big stuff where I want to don't just want to break it off, but I want to pull up and disturb the root system as much as possible. I'll show you a real quick video.
Good morning. We're going to do just a quick how-to video if you're unfamiliar with the polar bear. And basically this is what you do. You approach the stem and you drop the polar bear around the base, snug it up with your foot, and then before you pull back on the handle, you just step on the jaw, then close up, and then just put both hands on the tool and pry it out. And use the tool to pull the root ball completely out of the ground. It's just that easy.
So I would have to say it's not always just that easy, but it's real close to that. So I usually get down on the ground and have to clear stuff away and get, expose the stem and get where you can get to it really good, and then get a good clamp on it. Sometimes that takes a couple of efforts, but in the end, it works to really pull up big stuff. The one I got was the XL 321, this big one right here, and the 321 means that it can be adjusted, that the jaws can be adjusted to grip a stem 1 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inch stems. And if you get the proper adjustment, then that really gives you the best geometry for getting the most crank when you try to pull it out of the ground. So, and this, it's not cheap. It's $169. It would have been nice to have been able to find like some neighbors and maybe put it in the neighborhood closet for sharing or something. But I use a lot. So here I am in the pandemic when we were stuck at home. How great was it? In some ways it was nice to be stuck at home. This spring, I was able to spend a lot of time outside, and I called it my pandemic office. It was also my gym, therapist, yoga studio, best classroom ever. But here, I wanted to show you this. So this is that polar bear, just to get a sense of the size of it. So see, it's a big, long thing, and it weighs about 17 pounds. But it really works to pull up tough saplings and even smaller trees. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vera. Do you have any questions? Anybody on chat with a question? Okay, well, I do, the polar bear is certainly a break. We end up using a backhoe a lot of times to pull the autumn olive, but you can get a lot of polar bears for that. Okay, I guess we'll see if anybody has any questions coming up on Vera's next Wes and Linda loader. Has this been part of the stay-at-home pandemic, Wes, that you folks have come up with the e-bikes?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, you guys ready for me?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. All right. All right. Okay, we're going to be talking a little about e-bikes today, talking about what they are and what have you, and then we'll talk a little about our experience. I've been biking for probably 60 years of my life, or almost 70 years of my life, and been about the last few years, it's been getting kind of hard getting up the hills on my old analog bike. So we thought about what would be an alternative to get out and do things, and we started looking at e-bikes. And in February, Linda and I both bought e-bikes, and I'll tell you, we love them, and we've been using them ever since. And so the question is e-bikes, is it a transportation mode for the future? Is our theme here tonight, and talking about what they are and what we can do with them. First of all, talk a little about what an e-bike is. It's like a conventional bicycle with pedals, but it has an added motor and battery to assist or boost pedaling. This is an e-bike here, and when you can look carefully at it, you can see some differences right away. You can see the battery pack in the next to the where the pedals are. There's a motor in the back and the various controls. Walk through. Starting at the upper left is the control for the pedal assist, which is an important property that basically the more as you pedal, the motor is actually helping your pedal turn around. Battery pack, the control service, the interface. You can see at the time I did this, it was on pedal assist 1, and we had 800 miles on it. Lower left in the picture here is that there's the standard gear shift for a 7-speed transmission, as well as the throttle there that can give you extra boosting. So all your e-bikes should have a motor, either crank or hub based, a controller computer, a rider interface, and some sort of control. Types of e-bikes. This has been going around. It's only been the last couple of years that the state of California standardized the types, and that's been picked up by everybody else. Type 1 e-bikes are pedal assist only, and the speeds are limited up to 20 miles an hour. Type 2 is the same thing, except you have a throttle, so you can actually boost your oomph, so to speak. And type 3, which I've never seen, can get speeds up to 28 miles an hour, but it has no throttle. And all these types can either be crank hub or wheel hub. Crank hub is where the motor itself is right where you pedal, and it puts the motor over the center of the gravity, which some manufacturers say they prefer. And hub base, it's based around the rear wheel. A few of the early ones were also hub based in the front wheel, although I've never seen any of those. E-bikes have been around for a long time, but they really started coming into being about 10 years ago. And they really took off about 4 years ago. The market grew in 4 years, grew 91% between 2016 and 2017. It is today a $77 million business in the United States. And the COVID restrictions pushed sales worldwide to new heights. This year, electric bike sales went up 84% in March, 92% in April, and 137% in May, which is the latest month that I have a figure for. Our bikes, which are rad bikes, their sales went up 300% in mid-May. This is a Seattle-based company, and they have had a heck of a trying to meet demand. Of course, if anybody's been in the toy section of Walmart or something like that, you see all kinds of bicycles are just gone. I mean, the COVID just wiped out bicycles in stock at bicycle shops and everywhere. Today, virtually all your major bicycle manufacturers and automobile manufacturers now offer EV bikes, including Ford and Jeep and other places, companies like that. Virtually all the e-bikes that you're likely to see are actually made in China or assembled from Chinese, Japanese parts. Wide range of prices from you can get on Amazon, you get an e-bike for about $400. I wouldn't vouch for it, but you can go all the way to $15,000. Sizes range from mini bikes bikes for heavy duty commuting or off-road mountain type bikes. So where can you ride an e-bike? And the answer is easy. Almost anywhere an analog bike is permitted, you can ride an e-bike because they are considered by the most governments to be bicycles, not mopeds or something like that. But the actual access may vary by state and jurisdiction. There's been some conflict with analog bikers, particularly mountain bikers, who seem to resent them for some reason or other. Security is another issue. These are high value, high demand items, and so theft has been a major problem. And we would recommend if you own an e-bike, you get the biggest, heaviest, nastiest U-lock you can afford, and multiple locks is even better. An angle grinder can cut through a U-bike U-lock in less than 2 minutes. So you don't want to leave your bike unattended except if you have it majorly locked up. We have locks. We don't usually carry them with us because we always bike together, and when one of us goes in the store, it stays with the bikes. So there's always somebody guarding the bikes wherever we go. Safety. We always wear helmets, gloves, safety glasses or glasses of some sort, vests, and we have rear view mirrors on our bicycles. The problem is, of course, that down here, a lot of people say, oh, well, you just take them on bicycle paths, no problem. And if you're in some place like the Netherlands where there are far more bicycles than people or cars, it may not be a problem. But in this area here where there's no bicycle paths and very narrow shoulders and you have a lot of car traffic that isn't always aware what you're doing, it can be a problem. Now, this brings us to environmental issues. The plus, and this picture here shows our batteries with our charger and with a timer on it, which makes it very nice. The plus is, one of the reasons we did this and went to it is that we wanted to reduce the amount of time that we were driving our fossil fuel vehicles. We don't have enough power from our panels to be able to charge an electric car, but we do have enough power to charge bicycle batteries. So there's no fossil fuels needed. There's less noise, no pollution. It's a big sell thing. It's a major assist to older, less mobile people. As I said, I can't really do my analog bike anymore. It's too hard to push it up a hill. But on an e-bike, I can go up almost any hill, even the steepest ones, without exhausting myself. It's a good source of exercise, and it's less expensive than a motor vehicle. The minuses, as you can see in the thing here, the parts come all over the world. I mean, basically, these are Chinese-made bicycles. The controllers use rare earth elements, and you have to be a more responsible person. Okay, what's about our experience here? Well, we bought them mainly to replace the car. So, you know, we didn't do it for pleasure driving as much as for shopping and banking and getting around. So we immediately got baskets, and then we put these insulated bags on top, and we can haul our groceries home. We can carry all over 30 pounds of groceries in each one of our bikes, and we often do that. Here we are arriving at the Readiness Market, Kutztown, which is a lot of our shopping and driving. The left-hand picture here shows Echo Hill, which is about a 30-mile round trip for us. We've been out there a few times. Or going to the dump and taking our garbage to the dump, which is a 5-mile round trip for us. So that's what our main thing is. Pleasure, well, it's good exercise. It's good outdoor outside. And you're saving fossil fuel, and so, you know, it's been a wonderful experience for us, and I would highly recommend it for anybody who needs to do things, that likes to get out in the doors and get around and just enjoy the outdoors and get things done too. So that's it. Questions?
Thanks. Okay, Wes, I guess I don't see anything on chat right now for questions. We'll see if anybody has anything at the end then.
There was a question about range.
Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, sure.
And can you recharge by pedaling?
Okay, the city bikes the rad city bikes that we have some recharge capability. If you're going downhill and you momentarily hit the brakes so that the pedal assist is taken out of the picture, it will recharge while you're coasting down the hill. Having said that, I would say that it's not much. I mean, it's not like as much as you get as a car. We've gone as far as, I would say we could easily go in our area with all the hills we have, at least go a 40-mile round trip on our battery charge. I mean, we've done going to town, which is a 20-mile round trip, and done the dump, which is a 5-mile round trip, and still had 2 bars left on the batteries. And as I said, we went out to Echo Hill and back. That's at least 30 miles.
And how do you feel about the braking capability?
These have fine. You know, I mean, the bikes are 65 pounds. They are not light, and we have disc brakes, but they are not hydraulic disc brakes, but they fine. You know, you just use them. You have to learn. I mean, it's a different bicycling experience. You have to learn to, you know, control what you're doing here. The first time I got on an e-bike, I topped it over its side, but you learn fast.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Wes. Do they come with training wheels?
No.
All right.
Wes, can you release the screen? Great.
Okay. Next, Mark King's going to talk about balancing 2 electric cars, and then some more back to the yard too, and what you can do besides running those nasty power tools. So, okay, Mark, can you unmute?
Yeah, but he's got these things now. He looks like the same model we do, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Thanks, Phil. So I'd like to talk to you tonight about how our family has been able to take advantage of the free energy from the sun to be better steward of our resources and to care for our property in a more environmentally friendly ways. So a little bit background for me. I grew up in the 70s, and I developed a passion, I think, at that time for being a good steward of our resources. I would participate in newspaper drives with the Cub Scouts and collected bottles for recycling. And I thought we should do more recycling and install solar panels in our houses, but it wasn't very feasible then. I also was influenced quite a bit by my parents' simplified lifestyle. They were born during the Great Depression, and lived through World War II rationing. They bought only what that was needed, and they didn't waste. So I grew up learning to make use of what we had. Then as my Christian faith matured in my 30s, I started to believe that all we have comes from God. So my principle of not being wasteful transitioned into being a good steward of our resources out of gratitude for what God has given us. So our process here started back in June 2015, when we were kind of launched unexpectedly, when I received a phone call from Solar City to see if we'd like to have solar panels installed on our roof. And ironically, the call came in while workers were installing a new roof on our house. So seeing that the solar panels, after some research, would enable us to use the free energy from the sun for household electricity, it got me to thinking about other ways to use the free electricity. And we started to realize that our investment in solar panels would be paid back much more quicker if we transitioned away from fossil fuels for other areas of energy use, like our oil furnace. I also learned more about EVs, and afterwards we decided that we would replace our 2 high mileage 15-plus-year-old cars with EVs when they wore out. So we decided to take the plunge with step 1 of 4 in our long-range plan to use the free energy from the sun to electrify our house, fuel our cars, and heat and cool our home by investing in a roof-mounted solar PV array, which was a 10-kilowatt system consisting of 35 solar panels. Our new solar array was designed to provide more than our current electrical needs at the time to allow for the increased future usage of the 2 EVs. You can see here on the graph the surplus of electricity for the first year by the negative usage in the center of the graph. And we eventually accumulated over $600 in credits on our electric bill before we started fueling the EVs. So in October 2017, we need to replace our Honda Accord. So we took step 2 of 4 in our long-range plan by purchasing a 2014 Nissan Leaf. 8 months later, our other car died sooner than expected. Since we couldn't wait until there was a larger selection of lower-cost, higher-range EVs, we compromised our desire to be all-electric by purchasing a 2014 Chevy Volt plug-in EV with a 40-mile electric range and a small range-extending gas engine. The electric range is just enough for my daily work commute when I'm commuting to work, and we have the gas engine for longer trips. Now, charging the Leaf overnight using our 20-amp outdoor outlet to add 5 miles an hour of charge wasn't a problem, but now with 2 EVs to charge, we found that we had to think through the timing for charging both cars, and switching the portable charging cord between electric vehicles was kind of a nuisance. We found that sometimes we did not have enough time to fully charge the Volt for my 40-mile commute, so I ended up using the polluting gas backup engine on the way home. And you can see we also had a tripping hazard with that setup there. So that led us to install an EV charging station alongside our driveway, so now we can safely charge the cars in either parking spot. Now we can add 30-plus miles of charge per hour for the Leaf instead of 5, and we can fully charge the Volt in less than 4 hours instead of 9. And we typically would charge the Volt overnight while we were sleeping, and then we could quickly add any needed charge for the Leaf throughout the day. The cord switching is minimal, and our charging station has an app that allows us to start or stop a charge from the comfort of our home. So now with 2 EVs, it meant that our yearly surplus of solar energy production was over, but we visit gas stations much less often. We seldom have to go out and pump gas in bad weather. And now with concerns about germs with COVID, we don't have to risk getting germs from the gas nozzles. So now, since we had electricity being fueled for free for our household, we started making a more concerted effort to eliminate using fossil fuels to care for our yard. And the vast improvements in cordless technology in recent years has made this much more feasible. Now, we'd used a push-wheel lawnmower for years, but we always needed to borrow our neighbor's gas mower a few times when the grass got too long for the push wheel. So we were able to move away from this gas use by purchasing a small, lightweight Sunjo cordless lawnmower that we use not only for occasional grass cutting, but we can also use it for mulching heavy hedge clippings and leaves. Instead of borrowing our neighbor's gas leaf mulcher, we now use our cordless lawnmower for that task. With our electric chipper, I can grind up tree branches that are less than 2 inches thick. I was able to create 11 bags of wood chips that I put in our garden along with grass clippings from our cordless lawnmower to keep the weeds down and nourish the soil. Our string trimmer, leaf blower, and hedge climber are all cordless. And I used my father's gas-powered Troy-built lawnmower, which was huge, but was a bear to use tilling up the garden because its self-propelled wheel functions did not work. Since tilling is also now recommended less often, actually since less tilling is recommended, it was another reason to drastically downsize to a cordless tiller. A mechanically inclined coworker gladly took the rototiller, so it's been repurposed for good use. Now last year I learned more about composting, so I started a composting pile with grass clippings, leaves, hedge clippings, shredded with our cordless lawnmower, and food scraps. And at the end of last summer, we acquired an Earth Machine composter for free through our Nextdoor website. Now we collect food scraps in that small ceramic jar that you see in the bottom left in the kitchen, and I transfer them every few days out to the Earth Machine just outside our back door. And then the last year I'd like to talk about is how we've been able to drastically reduce our trash pickups using the 3 R's and the 2 C's that were shown there. So we reduce waste by being intentional about what we bring onto our property so it does not become trash later. We reuse, repurpose, resell, or give away unwanted items as much as possible. All our yard waste is composted and repurposed on our property, so none of it needs to be landfilled. And I make efforts to compact the trash to reduce our pickups. So from all these efforts, we've been able to reduce our trash pickup over the years from what was typically once a week to now just 4 times per year we need to trash pickup with our 35-gallon trash can. And that's for the household of 3. Since trash pickups are included in our borough taxes, there's really no financial benefit for us, but for other households, there definitely could be a savings. And here you can see a list of things in the last year we found new homes for by expending a little bit of effort to post them on websites. And it's been amazing to see stuff that people come and take away from us. So to close up, I'd just like to share some major benefits we've experienced from our improved stewardship efforts. We've been glad to be able to take personal responsibility for meeting our household and transportation energy needs. We've been able to reduce our fossil fuel use and waste disposal to lessen the negative impacts we have on our environment. And the changes we've made are going to create a long-term reduction in our household expenses. So that's our story. We're glad to use the free energy from the sun whenever we can. Any questions?
Okay, thanks a lot, Mark. That's really,
Sure.
that's
Oh, wait,
incredible.
there's
about
a
the
couple
trash.
questions here.
Okay.
What is the charging and use in winter time for are you seeing differences between summer and winter?
Yeah, definitely the cars use up the fuel faster, the electricity faster in the winter. The Leaf is a secondary car, so typically it's going 30, 40, 50 miles in a day. So just have to be a little more careful to make sure it's more fully charged if we're going out. And the volt I lose, it's a 40-mile commute, so in the summer I can easily do 43 miles. In the winter I have to drive pretty carefully, so you'll see me going like 50, 55 miles per hour in expressways and trying to take advantage of every downhill to regenerate, but it's not a problem for us.
And do you have more information on the chipper?
It's a Sunjoe chipper, so Sunjoe has been really good. I've gotten the chipper, the cordless lawnmower, the hedge clipper, some hose nozzles. I think there's one other thing I got through them. They've been really good so far. I've had the mower for 2 years, the chipper. It's worked fine. I think it was about $170, $180. But if it's, I think the fresh cuts, I don't think it chips as well, but I have a couple of trash cans with holes in the bottom, so I'll just put the branches in there, let them age for 3 or 4 months, and then I'll run the chipper and do a bunch of them, create some wood chips and put them wherever they're needed. But it's run pretty well. You just kind of turn a little dial in it to tighten the cutting blade every so often. I got the larger size one too, and that's worked pretty well. Anything bigger, I'll just give away to people that use them for like hayride bonfires or for their backyard fire pits.
Okay, I guess I had a quick question on your electric bill now with you have your cars. How much electricity are you using a year?
Well, it's been kind of strange. So I had that $600 credit, so we didn't pay any electric bill since May of 2015. We always had a surplus. We did use up that surplus trying to do both cars. That 40-mile commute was like 10 to 12 kilowatt hours a day, and our usage before solar panels was 20 kilowatt hours. So we did use up that credit. I've been working from home since March, so we're probably going to build up a credit. We'll definitely build up a credit again.
Right.
But we do have to pay. I mean, if we didn't have this working from home, we'd probably start paying maybe $20, $30 a month through the winter. Summer we overproduce still, so we'll make up. We won't pay in the summer.
Okay, and then did the heat pump change your oil usage much at all?
Well, actually, thankfully we haven't had to do the heat pump yet since we had to buy 2 cars in 8 months.
Oh, okay.
We're kind of not such in a hurry to replace the furnace, so it's 20 plus years old, the furnace and the air conditioning, central air conditioner, but they're still working fine, so we kind of holding off on that until it's definitely needed, or maybe we have some more finances to do that. But for now, we're just kind of, sadly, we're pretty polluting with the oil furnace, but we're making up for the other stuff hopefully enough to be helping the environment.
All right. Well, it's on the right path, Mark. It's really great, and especially the trash. I'm really impressed with that. 4 times a year is incredible. But,
yeah, I do a lot of compacting. Most people wouldn't stand in their trash can that pushed it down hard, but
okay.
I try to get my numbers as low as I can.
All right. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, next, well, we have the aftermath of a hurricane coming up towards us. I guess Friday morning, we'll see what we get. A couple inches of rain and possibly power outages again. So it kind of leads into John McVicker, and he's been an electric car guy for years, and he's figured out ways now to work his electric car as a backup generator for little electricity around his home office. You there, John? There we go. All right, John.
Hi. Okay, this is a sort of a presentation. A few of these slides I've used before, so this may not be new to everybody, but I'm going to be talking a little bit about using my EV Chevy Volt for some home power usage. And it's not powering the whole house, but eventually I think we'll see some of this happening for a whole home solution. Okay, so let's move forward. I had a problem needing the car for power in home. I had to power my home office when after I had a solar PV installed in 2012, the installer made a mistake in some of their installation, and I had ended up with some problems with water. And I'll show you a picture here in a second. The combiner box they installed for my system on the lower left here below the 2 meters was set up without proper drainage. So it had water incursion in the top with the 2 entry point holes, and it had no weep holes. So my problem here was the solar installation was done and inspected by an engineer, but it gave me no, I had no idea that it was wrong until it failed. And the way it failed was, I'll show you in the next slide here, that I had water go in this hole. And what this hole is the 200 amp input line to the house. So essentially, I'm dripping water down through a hole into the main circuit breaker panel. And so you can imagine the danger of that, where during a heavy rain, I would find some water on the floor, but not know where it really came from. And so I had to eventually open this box up, and I took a look inside, and I saw that, there was a puddle right up to almost the edge of that little water hole, or the hole that's shown in the picture. the entry point then led down here to this entry point for the solar for the 200 amp input to the house, and that's where the water actually went through my circuit breaker panel. So this is something to watch out for if you ever have any installations done with outside boxes. Make sure you have weep holes that let the water drain from a box like mine was. Later it was patched up with some clay putty to block the incursion holes and put the weep holes in. What the installer did for free, which was good, was they agreed to install a new panel. It would take hours to install the panel, and the work had to be done during the week. So I needed power for my home office. So what happened was, when they decided to do that, I used the equipment that I had from my car to run my home office, and basically spent pretty much the whole day on the car. So the solution was to use a product, not really even a product, it's more like wiring harness from a company called EV Extend. While the breaker panel was installed, the EV Extend product, and I'll show you a picture of that, was able to drive enough 120 volt power to my home office. I could run my computer, my router, my network, some lighting, also lighting for the worker who installed the new panel. And that ran roughly 5 or 6 hours. So it did just fine. The volt was able to run that off the 12 volt battery. The way it works is the 12 volt battery in the rear of the car, shown with the on the right, is underneath that plastic cover. They just basically install a red and black wire to the plus and minus, running that to a connector on the left here, which is sort of a heavy duty DC connector. It has a grounding cable in green, and it grounds that to the frame in the car. And what that then does is lets you run up to roughly a 1,000 watt inverter to power whatever appliances or components you have in your house. I bought a 600 watt inverter, and I think it's too small. Other people have used 1,000 watt with a peak 2,000 watt burst, and that works better. The way it looks is this: you plug it into the car. Your red and black wires are basically attached with the green grounding wire, and the yellow wire runs off into the house. And for me, that's all I needed was a long extension cord and then a few local power strips to plug everything into. So it doesn't, it's not essentially running the house, but it let me run quite a few components to my office for most of the day while the work was done. In the end, it used about 5 kilowatt hours from the car battery. I left the volt on during the whole time. And yeah, there's some inefficiencies in that, because I didn't really use 5 kilowatts like I would have from the wall socket. I used an inverted 5 kilowatt hours from the car battery. So that goes from a high voltage main battery to a DC to DC converter into this inverter back to 120 volts. So there's a lot of transformation happening here. Probably wasted about 1 or 1.5 kilowatt hours just doing that. But it did serve its purpose. Also, my solar system was only down for part of a day, so I didn't lose a lot of production. One other thing that followed this year, I lost an inverter for my system. So I have two Auroras from Power One, which is now ABB. I lost one of the inverters this year, so I had to get a replacement under warranty. And so after about 7.5 years, I did lose an inverter. So that's another round of change for the system I have. But it's back up and running. Some other uses I had for this power was I've run the garage refrigerator during a power outage. There is a startup draw for the refrigerator, but the inverter did actually keep up. So I was able to run that for some cooling cycles when we had power outage for probably about a day or so. I remember it going out in the morning and it didn't come back on till around when this was when my kids came back from school that day. So that's, I guess, about 6 hours. I've made coffee with our coffee maker with it. I've gone camping with it and provided some local power while camping. So having an inverter in the car I think it's nice to have, and it came in useful. You can always put an inverter on any car onto a 12 volt battery. So it's nothing new. but it's just something that worked out well. I didn't have to run the engine. I didn't have to, smog up the garage or anything. I just, kept the car going, kept the volt going, and it drew down the main battery. So I still, even after all that, I still have the original battery from 2011 in the volt, the 12 volt. So I put a link here to the company EV Extend if you want to take a look at what their options are. They have a couple different ones, one for a leaf, the 2 different volts. They have a kit for a bolt, and they even have a 240 volt home backup power pack, which is interesting, but I don't really need that. They also sell systems with a sine wave inverter. At the very bottom too, I found this useful for the volt. If you drive a volt, you may want to protect the front radiator in the car from stones and things coming up from the road. So I bought a volt screen from this company. They also sell something called a volt shelf, which is a cover for your rear hatch area. But the volt screen's been real nice. It's kept a few things from going into the radiator area. But finally, I think some of you guys saw my presentation about a year ago about V2G and V2Home. One day we'll have our car power the house. And I think my example was a small version of what's really to come. And that's where you have your car as your home backup power, or even as your primary power, where it's fed from a solar system. So this picture, is old, from back when the Leaf was just coming out. They had some of these systems in Japan back in 2012. However, we're not using this type of system yet, and I think we will see a lot more of this as time comes by. So that's it for my presentation.
Okay. Any questions, Phil? Come in and chat.
Nothing so far.
Okay.
Okay, John, just real quick, how much did it draw down on your volt main battery while you were off grid?
It looked about 5 kilowatt hours roughly. I'd used about 3 bars on the car, so I assume I'm gonna say 5. It's possible it was less than that, but I'm just taking a guess there. Really, it wasn't a full load of a kilowatt. The lighting and the computers and things aren't a full kilowatt. So I assume my wattage was roughly 300 watts, 400 watts through the whole time. I should have put my kilowatt onto the line, because I could have then definitely got the numbers for you.
Right. On a volt, what's your full kilowatt kilowatt hour charge?
There's about 10 kilowatt hours of usable power. The battery is a 16 kilowatt hour battery, but they don't let you use the whole thing.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, well, thanks. It comes in handy, and yeah, you can see that just about everybody wants something.
There's one more question for John. Are there also inverters that can attach directly to the battery posts?
These actually do. It connects underneath. This is to the posts and the battery in the back. They screw onto the available bolts onto the battery. So the wiring is tucked away, and this whole area is covered by a flat cover that's bolted down. So it's an easy connection. They're not on the posts, but they're on the post connectors.
Okay, great. All right. Any other questions for that? All right. Well, thanks a lot, John.
Sure.
And okay, next we have Bill Heff, and he's going to be talking about some earth-friendly cooling and heating that he's done with his house. There we go. We got the screen. Okay, are you there, Bill? Well, a little bit on mute here.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay, great. We can go to the next screen. We are scientists. My wife and I are scientists, and we're very concerned about climate change, and I think it's very dangerous for every grandchild out there. My background was I spent 38 years at DuPont, and I'm manager of product stewardship, and there I learned all about. For 25 years, I've been following the science and the risk very closely. So at any rate, we try to walk the talk. We've made a number of energy upgrades, and all these energy upgrades have financial payback. So I like to tell people who are skeptics that you make money out of this. We are located about 2 or 3 miles outside of Unionville and 3 miles north of Kennett Square. Our house was built in '86, about 4,000 square feet of conditioned space and another 300 that's not conditioned. You can go to the next slide. So this is a picture of our geothermal. We installed that in 2009. I have about 1,200 feet underground total. We used existing ductwork, so it does about 60 to 65% of the house, both cooling and heating. All right, you can go to the next one.
Okay.
And so we also installed we have not all the house had ductwork, so not all of it is done by geothermal. So we had it in what we call the in-law suite, about 15 by 12. We installed a mini split, a Mitsubishi mini split HVAC, with heating and cooling in 2018, extremely efficient, probably a SEER of 18, and very quiet. There was an old unit there made in Israel, never heard of it before. We moved in, we ultimately in 2018 took that out. We're very happy with that room. Next slide. And this year we replaced an old air conditioning unit that was the owner had put there in 2003. This is for a 36 by 22 and probably 16 to 18 foot high, big, huge family room, and our bedroom. It's extremely efficient, a SEER of 19, and also changed the line that was coming into the house where the previous owner had run about 150 feet of poorly insulated, and we have a very short line that's insulated. So we're very happy with that. Next slide. Now, again, I like to point out, this is all the transition. We didn't build new, we're trying to transition as will everybody else, so not everything is going to be perfect. So to heat the house, in addition to the geothermal, which does about 60%, there was an oil boiler installed in the house with 5 hot water zones. They're pretty efficient, actually. So what we do is the zones we don't use, and periodically we'll put 3 of them down to 50 degrees so they don't call for any heat at all. So as you know, no heat is the best way to go, and then we just heat the other 2 zones. It's very efficient, very fast, and for a house our size, I use, let's say, about 250 gallons of oil a year, which is extremely efficient. I looked into replacing this with heat pumps, but our house, the way it has additions on it, just wasn't cost effective to do that. I think a lot of people are going to find it's very hard to ultimately go to electricity. And so the other thing we have is we do have a passive sunroom facing southeast. In the winter, we open those doors and a lot of free heat just rolls into our family room, and basically the greenhouse effect. Of course, in the summer, we just open the windows out there and the wind blows through. We do have ceiling fans at all our rooms, and they circulates both the cooling and heating, so we're very happy with it. Very efficient. Next slide. And we've had the blower door test run several times. I really like this test. It gives us a good metric, first done in 2013. When we first started all this operation here, I had some smoke tubes. I and a handyman walked around the whole house with smoke tubes and the fireplace, the doors, the windows, every place, where there might have been an opening to the outside, took notes, and then he went back and we caulked them with clear silicone caulk. We did this in 2017 when Pico came out. They charged me $99. He used a thermal camera and did a pressure check, pressure drop. I walked around again with smoke tubes and smoke bubbles and looked for leaks and caulked up anything he found. Pico did give us much more than $99 worth of materials, LED lights and I do have a tip. If you do run the blower door test, it's not enough just to run the pressure drop. You really need to walk around with some type of, quote, smoke tubes. I have found if you get incense sticks and light 2 or 3, you get a nice smoke, and you can watch as that move, if the air currents move around windows and doors and fireplaces. And they're very cheap to use, and I thought very safe. Next slide. So insulation, the house was kind of built with different additions, so we have basically 3 attics, one of which is very hard to get into. I and a handyman went up and took all the old padding out, and we could see on the sides where air and dirt had leaked around the insulation. And so I had the liquid polyurethane 2-package system blown in and foamed up to seal all the leaks. But what I've read and what I've learned is that anytime you put any insulation, whether it's fiberglass or batting or loose, whatever, you should always caulk the joists and the roof seams with some type of polymeric system, and the good contractors will do that. Or otherwise, the air leaks will go right around your insulation and defeat the purpose. We've also replaced almost all of our windows with Anderson windows over the 8 to 10 year period. We did that over a time period. It's nice to replace windows. I'm not so sure that you really gain a lot if you have fairly decent windows to begin with. What I found is it was more important to make sure that when they seal the window, just not putting fiberglass batting in there, but I went out and bought the little kits of foam and had them blow foam in around the windows to make sure they didn't leak around the windows. Next slide. We have a fireplace with an internal blower and ceiling fan above that. In the winter, I burn that almost every day on cold days. Puts lots of heat into the house, and the ceiling fan blows it around. I have a 4-acre lot. Somebody mentioned before not mowing. We only mow 2 of the acres. I let the other 2 go wild, but I do get a fair amount of wood out of it. We did remove our siding in 2011. We were at the house in Tyvek, again, to stop leaks, and a hardy board was installed on top of that. Now it comes to, we do lose power, and we used to lose it more than we do now, but I looked at batteries. They weren't cost effective at the time. So I've had this maybe 4 years now, and I bought basically a tractor, a Kubota diesel, 10 kilowatts. I do remember I have an oil heater, so I can use the oil in that should I need to. Right now I've been going to the gas station buying diesel fuel. And we use that probably 4 to 5 days a year. I do have, as I mentioned, the base water heat. We are concerned about that freezing in the winter. We do have a well, and with the well, if you don't have power, you can't get water. We do have a freezer and a refrigerator. I wanted to make sure we didn't lose all that. So I like this. It's certainly not. It has a carbon footprint, but we use it so little, the carbon footprint is de minimis for what it does. That's it. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. This is one of the windows that we had, the Anderson window, but in addition to the window, we put in insulated shades. Here's a picture of the shades. And they're very effective. They really do a good job of keeping the cold, even though the window's good. They do a very good job. And we have one that's high up, and we have a little unit we can point at it that comes down automatically.
Yep. Hey, Bill, we lost you again here.
Next slide. Or is that the last one? I can't remember.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. We do have, we did install solar in 2014, 6.7 kilowatts from Hyundai. That's all I could get on the roof. Our roof is kind of broken up, and the part that faces southeast that's all I could get. I would like to have done more, but that was it. So obviously you generate more in the summer, but this offsets about 50% of our total electric bill. Of course, that's looking at what the PICO tells us when I look at the in and out on the meter. But obviously some of that is used as generated, and you don't capture that because it's already used before it gets out to PICO. I do have 25 microinverters. I have an end phase that allows me to go look at the output of these at any time and look at the day, the week, the year, whatever reports like that. Unfortunately, I've had to replace 3 PV panels due to hazing and cracking. The supplier said that's very unusual. They put in 900 of these, and they've had very few failures, but I've lost 3. I have one more that needs to be replaced. And so I've talked to the contractor, JK Mechanical up in Lancaster, and we've decided maybe to go with a more efficient panel, even though it's not from Hyundai, to replace some of these, but it would use a different micro. Anyway, I did receive $3,000 from Pennsylvania when I did this in 2014. I did put a new roof under these panels. The roof is 12, 13 years old. I did put a new roof under them. And just based on what the PICO bills are, even though I didn't count what I used instantaneously, I figured I paid this off in 2020, May of this year. Okay. And we do have a Hyundai hybrid, which I get about 40 miles per gallon on. We have a 2016 Honda, which only gives about 26. we're looking very hard next year about buying an EV, and I'm not quite sure which one to get. I like the Teslas, but I also like the Kona, but I really haven't looked at them. We do have a very large vegetable garden, and I have another garden where I grow raspberries and blueberries, and I have a chicken coop. And now I use it as for my dog to run around in. As somebody mentioned earlier, you have the same, almost the same kind of container. We compost all organics and shredded leaves, 2 huge compost piles that I use on the garden. I think that's the end of the talk. Thank you.
Okay. You got some questions there, Phil?
Was Bill's house not wrapped with Tyvek originally?
No, it was not.
And then,
And another question, any trouble with bears with the composite? And
We don't have any bears. No bears down by Kennett Square. I do have some possums, but no bears.
okay. Have you tracked, what you might for your energy savings, or, in terms of all the work you've done to reduce your heating and cooling loads?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have not calculated my savings. The only thing I calculated recently was what do I pay a year for both electricity and oil? And for a 4,000 square foot house, I pay $1,350 a year together, 800 or so in electricity and 400 something in oil.
Okay, great. All right. Well, it's certainly paying off. And yeah, what's next then after the car? You have any other projects for the house?
I would love to put a ground mount in and more solar. My wife is reluctant because it would mess up the view a little bit, but we're wrestling with that.
Okay. Well, solar is about as pretty as it gets anyways. All right. Okay, well, thanks a lot, Bill. Any other questions come in on that? All right. Okay, and then this is for people that are really mechanically inclined, I guess. Joanne Ivanek is going to talk about converting her Ford Focus to running on ethanol E85 anyways. And sounds like a really nice looking conversion. You there, Joanne?
Okay, there I go.
Okay,
Thanks,
you're on. Go ahead.
All right, well, thank you. My name's Joanne Ivanek. I want to tell you how we, actually I'll show you through a video, how we retrofitted my old 2002 Ford Focus 5 years ago so we could shrink our transportation carbon footprint by having a choice to not use 90% petroleum gasoline and have the option to use 85% ethanol fuel. This is for those of us, probably a majority, who aren't going to be able to afford a electric car anytime real soon. So this is...
Hi, I'm Joanne Ivanek with Advanced Biofuels USA, a nonprofit educational organization. In this episode of Just a Minute About Renewable Fuels, we're going to talk about retrofitting a car so it can use fuel that's 85% renewable ethanol, E85. This is a way
there we go. Okay.
of your existing car and decrease your carbon footprint until the electric vehicles are affordable, available, and powered by renewables using fair trade batteries. If you have a flex fuel vehicle, you can already use gasoline with blends up to 85% renewable ethanol. Find out if yours is an FFV, just look for the logo on the car that indicates that, or check your owner's manual for the information on the driver's side door. Even if you don't have a flex fuel vehicle or don't retrofit for E85, if your car is built in 2001 or later, you can use up to 15% ethanol fuel called E15, sometimes branded as unleaded 88, which indicates the higher octane that you can get from added ethanol. If you have an older vehicle that's past its warranty, you might want to retrofit it to use cleaner burning, high octane E85. E85 is usually less expensive too. This video explains.
So how does this whole system work? Well, let's start with something called the oxygen sensor. And the oxygen sensor in here usually have two of them on a car. You have one before the catalytic converter and one after. And this is sort of the driving point for your whole computer sensor. If this goes out, a light comes on in your dashboard.
That's this wire here.
Goes into
Okay.
there. There's a little oxygen sensor in there. Right in there. And that goes right into the exhaust pipe. And what that actually does is measure the oxygen content. And your oxygen content tells you how good your combustion is. You know, boss, we're reading, you know, such and such reading. How'd that look? And the computer goes, it's a little rich. Let's switch some things up there. Boom, switches it. So how's it now? Boom, we're golden. We're ready to go. And that simply is how the feedback computer loop works. So what happens in this one, it sends the more fuel, but the signal, we divert it. Instead of going directly from the fuel injector, see one of these, it then connects. This comes from the main feed line from the computer, and in there are your injectors. But instead of going direct in, instead we run it over here to a computer. If you look down here where I'm pointing, that's a fuel injector. Now, this main line from the computer used to go right in there.
Okay.
What we do is we unplugged it and jumped a new circuit into it.
Okay.
To do this fall forward, and they go over here to this computer. And what this computer does, it takes the signal from the car computer, and the car computer is saying, you need X amount of fuel to get this mixture. It takes an algorithm in there that translates what E10 is into the E85 we're using. It sends a signal and says, put in a little bit more. And, you know, to use the ethanol, you just have to adjust the fuel-air ratio.
The way I think about it is this computer is teaching the car's computer how to recognize E85 or other ethanol blends that it didn't know about before in 2002 when this car was built.
So you can decrease the pollution from your vehicle and lower your carbon footprint without buying an electric vehicle. For more information, visit our website, www.advancedbiofuelsusa.org. It includes an online library of more than 35,000 index items. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy our other Just a Minute.
Okay, so what I want to show you also, that video was made by a woman called Jenny Carrington, and she was doing a walk across America and came through, I'm in Frederick, Maryland, and she came through on the towpath along the Potomac, and we met with her and she was doing different things people were doing to highlight climate change issues and to highlight how people were mitigating that. So we thank her for putting that together for us. We've driven about 60,000 miles on E85 since November 2015, and we haven't had any problems with the fuel or the fuel system. If you do have a flex fuel vehicle, or if you retrofit and you want to find places to fill up, this is a government, a U.S. government tool that you can use, but it does not really keep up to date as well, unfortunately. There's something like 36,000 fuel stations, gas stations. This one is better. This one is e85prices.com, and you can just go on the computer and get it, and then it will tell you where you can put in a zip code, or you can just move the map around and see where you can get your E85. So, and then I wanted to show a picture of what pumps look like. So let's see, I have that here. So here's different, if you have E15, I've talked about E15, you can, there'll be a label on it, and it'll tell you it's E15. Like I said, the EPA says you can use E15 in anything newer than 2001. If it's E85, you might have a standalone like this that you'll find. This is a sort of an older one. Few reasons they did E85 standalones. One was some of the gas stations didn't want the their franchisees selling fuel that they didn't make. So they said, you can't do it under our canopy. So they would do it someplace on the same pad, but out from under the Exxon canopy or whatever. Or you might have one that is incorporated like this, or like this, which is this one down here, a blender pump, which I think is really where we should go. You should really have a choice to be able to use a range of different fuel mixtures depending on what your vehicle might be built for or what might be optimized. And then also when people were talking about their fuel oil and stuff, biodiesel, you'll see labels for biodiesel. I can't move this. I don't know how yours is set up, but my, if I can, maybe I can get, there we go. You can see up to 5% biodiesel. They really don't have to tell you. They often don't. You can have 5% biodiesel in your diesel fuel just as an additive. If it's over 5%, and it's mostly would be maybe up to 20%, you can get biodiesel blends. But again, it's for a compression ignition engine. And for those of you who were talking about your fuel oil or your heating oil, there's a lot of places that also have blends up to often 2 or 5 and sometimes up to 20% renewable. So you might ask about that too. So any questions?
Yeah, Joanne, what was the cost of your system to do the conversion?
That conversion was, I think we're like about $365. It might be, you might be able to, depending on what kind of car you have, there might be a little bit of a different thing, might be around $400 or something. The other thing is E85 is much cheaper. You can maybe see from this one, the E85 is, it looks like it's $1.55, $1.55.9 when your regular gasoline is about $1 more. So you have, if you do use E85, you do get a little bit less mileage, but the lower price can make up the difference. In Pennsylvania, a lot of sheets have it. Some of the rudders have it. And unfortunately down here in Frederick, until very recently, there was just one station that had E85. It was called W Express, and now there's a rudders that's in Walkersville, so a little bit away from us. So we don't have, but otherwise the next closest one would have been up in Gettysburg.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then
here's a question here.
Okay.
Let's see. Just wondering, as Joanne mentioned, E15, is this the standard fuel blend now for regular unleaded gas?
No, now,
yeah,
now the regular is E10. So everywhere you go, you'll get E10 unless there's a specific that's E0, but it costs E0 costs quite a bit more because the ethanol is a cheaper way to provide octane. So what the gasoline companies do is they make an 84 octane fuel, and then to get it up to 87, they use the ethanol. So if they're going to have to make octane out of petroleum products to give you an E0, then that's a much more expensive chemical to make because part of the reason that we have that ethanol there for the octane is to get rid of a chemical called MTBE, which is extremely carcinogenic, and it was one of these forever chemicals that didn't go away. 30-some states banned it, and so the oil companies were fine with going to 10% ethanol because it cost less. They could make more expensive chemicals out of the stuff they weren't using to make octane, and it wasn't as carcinogenic. I mean, we drink it. It's
Okay.
There was a question about whether a hybrid could run off of a biofuel.
Hybrids can do E10, but maybe E15. But they are not, the way that engine works is not compatible with higher higher blends of ethanol.
Okay, and on your conversion, if you're stuck in a place and need gas, can you use regular gas
Oh, yeah.
again? Okay.
Yeah. This gives you options. This gives you options.
Okay, and then do you have to do anything, or is it a transition that occurs with the computer?
Yeah, the computer just recognizes what is a blend, because sometimes you'll maybe fill it up, but there'll be still some of the other mixture left, or maybe it's not really E85, maybe that's just E75 or something. The regulation gives them some leeway on what they can put in there. So that's why that computer recognizes what's the octane level, what's the, and then the thing is with ethanol, it burns less, it burns cleaner, it burns less heat of what they call heat or vaporization, and it can use higher compression ratios, so you get more power out of the ethanol. The part of the reason there was those blender pumps with the E30 is DOE and now a lot of others have done research that shows that there's a sweet spot there for regular gasoline engines that we have now. If you use up to E30, it's that you don't lose mileage and you get extra power, and so you really increase the performance of an engine at about that spot. Nebraska and South Dakota are doing research programs with EPA on some state vehicles, like state police cars and things like that, using E30, and then doing all the testing, taking a look at the engines before and after, and keeping track of all the numbers. And that research should be done probably sometime next year. The other thing, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. I had a quick question on who would perform this conversion. Do you have to find a specialized mechanic?
Yeah. The people that we got it from were in Idaho, and I think it's hot rodders and stuff that are probably their main, or had been before we were doing this, their main market. And they're really good. You could email them, you could get them on a phone, you had any questions. One weird thing was with my car, I don't have, it had, it wasn't like the pictures on, on the videos of how to do it. There was this other plastic piece covering stuff up. And so they helped us figure out, how to figure out what that was and work it out. And we're very, very responsive. What I would say is, if you're going to look for one of these conversions, to make sure it's EPA approved. And theirs were all EPA approved. But there are numbers of companies that do it. And you do, once you put the ethanol in, when you start using a higher ethanol blend than you had been using, especially with an older car like mine was, you need to clean the fuel filter after a couple of tankfuls of the new stuff, because it cleans it out. If some of you may be old enough to remember the Tiger in Your Tank ads, and then they would show your really dirty pistons, and they would show this sparkling clean piston. Basically, they were running ethanol through it to clean it up. So it really does clean up your fuel system. And the same thing with biodiesel, is it also will clean up all the old gunk and junk out of the system, and you have to put in a fuel filter to catch that stuff up. Since then, we've been using mostly E85, but like you said, occasionally we'll find a place where we can't find it, and so we haven't had any problems after that first one, where you could really tell. you could really look at that filter and say, oh yeah, it cleaned it out.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Phil? Come in. Oh, you're on mute, Phil. Hey, Phil.
We don't have more questions for Joanne at this point, but we do have some other questions going back from the early stage that we missed.
Okay, great.
So we can catch up with that. There's one that's just a comment for in Vera's talk, as opposed to the, I guess, iNaturalist. They talked about the Seek app. I don't know, is that one that you looked at? She said it was good.
No, that's not what I've looked at. But I will. Is it SEEK?
Yes.
Thanks.
And another question was, do you leave all natural plants?
Do I leave them all?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I do.
So you don't.
Huh?
So you don't remove any natural plants ever.
But and if it's native, right? I mean, I occasionally if it's growing, and if it's literally in the way, but not for aesthetic reasons or anything. I never do.
Bill, there was another question for Vera, if I can ask it. It was the person stated that getting rid of invasive plants and weeds is a challenge. Is it logical to also plant anything that maintains local fauna or insects besides milkweed for monarchs, for example? Yeah,
that's and maybe that's like I said, our strategy is what we're doing here is evolving. But I found early on I would go to the native nurseries and pick up things that looked like interesting and like would be a good addition to the landscape, and would put them in and they would do all right. But that didn't find that rewarding, and I'm not really into sculpting or creating the landscape myself. And I found out I'm happiest with getting the invasives out of the way and freeing up like a palette for Mother Nature to go to work. And the stuff that occurs naturally is just amazing to me. The fields of asters now and the sensitive ferns and just all these plants that are just kind of given the opportunity are just filling in and creating layers and colors and connection that are better than anything I could have ever designed. That's for sure. In fact, we did have some, early on in this process, we had some beds put in professionally with some professional help, with selecting the plants and everything. And they're fine, but it's probably about almost the least interesting part to me of our yard. It's the stuff that Mother Nature has done that I'm happiest with.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
We have a question for Wes that we missed earlier, and just to get an idea, the question was, how expensive were your particular bikes, as an example?
We read city step throughs. They retail for $1,500 each, and with free shipping. But we only paid $1,400 a piece because we bought two at the same time. We also looked at the local bike shops. We looked at a Trek bike that was $2,600, and we didn't think that it was worth the extra $1,000 each.
Great, thank you. There was a question for Mark about how do you not have plastics to recycle?
We do recycle a lot of plastics. So plastics, cardboard, and that kind of helped when they expanded the plastics that you could put in there. So just like number 2 and 3, we found more stuff was going in there and less in the trash, and cardboard and different things like that. Anything paper, cardboard goes recycled. So that's kept our trash down quite a bit.
And your mower, is it cordless or corded?
It's cordless. Yeah, it's a sun gel. It was about 100. Actually, it was on sale today for $85. It only has a 30-minute charge, but our yard's only 5,000 square feet, so I can, if I'm planning it out, I can and get the whole thing done or just do the front or back with the cordless. But very lightweight, easy to push. You can just push it with one hand. It works great, so I highly recommend it. Much less noisy. Noisier than my push wheel, but still pretty quiet, relatively speaking.
And the question, just a comment, maybe the oil you use in the furnace could be more renewable with biodiesel. 2% to 20% might be available.
Okay, good to know.
Any other questions, Joe, Phil, anybody? Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap things up then this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming and thank everybody. Joanne, did you have something? No. Okay.
He's muted.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, I had a question I put in there, but must not have been seen. Was for Vera. Are you keeping a journal of what blooms and when it blooms and what fruits and when, so that if you have over the years you can watch the climate change effects?
You know what? I am regretting when I started doing this. You know, a few years ago, I didn't understand. I didn't appreciate what I was setting up to do. Right? I don't even have photographs. I so much wish now I had before and after photographs and all of those kind of thing. It was just kind of one of these things that's kind of grown on its own. But I hope to start some kind of better record keeping to kind of track progress and to track change, and to see over time, just because it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of becoming a classroom, of learning out there and see what nature has to teach us. And I think I grew up on, farms in South Carolina, and I remember that how everything was measured all the time, to understand and predict. I mean, it was like a part of being a responsible steward of your property, and I would like to start to do that here. So I appreciate your question, and I'll take it as encouragement. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? All right.
Well, there's a question for. There's a question for Bill Half. I didn't see him up here, but hopefully he can answer it. It says, how often can the sunroom generate heat in the wintertime? And what about cloudy days? And how would Bill rate the overall usability of the sunroom? I don't know if I'm looking for him out here. And I don't see him.
Well,
there's another question.
Well, again, we want to. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. The question is, do you allow native trees to grow?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah. We do. In fact, that's kind of the next frontier here is the succession that we're hoping to happen in a lot of the areas that we've stopped mowing. And, I'm surprised that more hasn't happened, because I've not really been, in very rare cases have I pulled trees. And I think, that the native trees, and I think it might be suppression from deer. So I think we're going to start to kind of more actively look for little saplings and maybe start to protect them and get them a head start to help them get going. And that may be an area where we end up actually planting some trees. I mean, I'm not sure yet, but encouraging that succession in a lot of areas.
Okay. Thanks.
It's on the radar.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, once again, we want to thank everybody. And January 27th will be our next. It'll be a Zoom presentation, and it'll be on wood burning. And we'll be talking a little bit about some of the pros and cons. Basically, just taking a look at that. We haven't got our speakers lined up for it yet. And so if anybody knows anybody or wants to get in touch with Phil about that, or through our website, that'd be great. And once again, we'll be starting our 16th year next year, and I want to thank everybody for helping out with this group. It's been great. So
And join us for the book discussion on November 12th.
Okay.
Thanks.
All righty. Well, thanks again, folks. All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.